We're ready to roll? All right. I want to thank you for being here, both in person and online. As always, my hope and my prayer is that we take away something from this that helps not just us, but our friends, our family, our colleagues, our patients, whomever you surround yourself with, whoever you meet, whoever you talk to. My hope and my prayer is that we take something away from this. So what we're wanting to have happen is that you become empowered enough to teach somebody else so that they can have that light, they can have that candle, they can have that basically hope in their heart that something can get better. That's my hope and my prayer. What we're going to be talking about tonight is autoimmune. So we're talking about autoimmune, loving your body so it loves you back. The key with autoimmune is to understand that it is a chronic stress. It's not a one thing that causes the problems. It's multiple things that will actually cause the issue. So it's a overwhelming growth of multiple aspects that have to happen for you to get into that place. So understand, autoimmune doesn't mean you have bad genes. Autoimmune doesn't mean you're a bad person. Autoimmune means that you have experienced a large amount of stress in your life, and I'll get to this later on, but you're usually the person that pushes through. That's the good soldier that works really, 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 really hard. That's usually the person that will get autoimmune. So your body is becoming overreactive to stress. And when we talk about stress, do you guys remember the kinds of stress that we look at? You're allowed to answer, Joseph. Emotional stress is a big one. Mental stress. Chemical. Yeah, there we go. Physical. Yeah. So we got emotional stress. I'm sorry for putting you on the spot.
No, that's okay. You want to explain autoimmune is.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Define it.
Okay. So question from the crowd is, what is autoimmune? So what autoimmune is when your body sees itself as foreign. So it's when your body sees a tissue in itself that is foreign. That's what autoimmune is. And then inadvertently we'll start attacking it. So if we all heard of rheumatoid arthritis, RA, that's an autoimmune disease. Have we heard of MS before? Autoimmune disease. Hashimoto's, autoimmune disease. Lupus, autoimmune disease. ALS, autoimmune disease. Psoriasis, autoimmune disease. So what we need to understand is autoimmune is a tissue in your body that your immune system is seeing as foreign and attacking. To answer your question? Perfect. So the immune system is trying to protect you. That's the underlying mechanism that's actually going on. But we need to understand that the immune system's job is very simple. It's to recognize self and to recognize foreign. So if its job is to recognize self and foreign, why would it be that way? So self, what we need to understand is on every cell in our body, there are these little flags that go up and say, I'm a Josh cell, I'm a Josh cell, I'm a Josh cell. And that's literally what the cells do. They're little proteins. And when your body goes around, the immune system goes around, it samples all the different cells. And it says, are you foreign? Are you foreign? Are you foreign? And if it says, I'm a Josh cell, it's good. The problem happens is when you have a chronic stress response, you can actually touch that cell that says, I'm a Josh cell, and overreact and decide that it isn't. And if that cell that it decides is not, is say cartilage, now your immune system, every time you get emotional, every time you get stressed out, every time you're exposed to chemicals, will actually attack those joints. It'll attack the cartilage. So when we look at it, we go, okay, this is pretty intense because it's basically my body attacking itself when its job is to protect me and attack foreign. So what's foreign? Foreign is going to be things like parasites. Foreign is going to be things like bacteria, viruses, heavy metals, toxins. To get all that stuff out of you, that's what your immune system is set up, is to get rid of the things that could kill you. But if it overreacts, or if it, not even overreacts, If it reacts based on bad data, then you can get autoimmune. So what do we want to look at is the major things that will actually drive you to go towards autoimmune. Because I want you to understand, autoimmune doesn't happen, I got bad genes, I just woke up and I have it. Autoimmune is the result of the straw that broke the camel's back. It was the 50 other things that finally drove you into autoimmune. So what are those things that can build up? Chronic emotional stress, chronic financial stress, chronic, if you ever say I'm stressing about anything and you chronically say it, that's chronic stress. I'm worried about something, that's chronic stress. How about infection? If we chronically have infection, or if we have an infection, that can push it up as well. So it could just be COVID. It could be a flu. It could be a virus. It could be travelers, Montezuma's revenge. It could be lots of different things. It can be a cold. It can be exposure to mold, a tick. Any number of things that shouldn't be in your body can push up that response of the immune system. Another one is going to be toxins. So exposure to heavy metals, exposure to bad air, exposure to gases. Some that people are not aware of that can really drive you into this, and it's very high, is actually mold. Black mold is a huge toxin that can drive you into autoimmune. For the people who are like, I have an autoimmune and I don't know why, it's usually an underlying thing driving them, like black mold or something like that. It's an underlying mechanism that most people miss. It's not all the time, but it will be there. Another one that can drive you into autoimmune is inflammation. So what do we get inflammation from? Bacterial viral infections, but you can also get inflammation from doing things that are good for you, like exercising. What if you're somebody who chronically exercises to feel calm and relaxed, but your body actually hurts all the time? When you exercise, you actually make an inflammatory response. So if you chronically are doing it to the point of fatigue every day and you're getting tireder and tireder, but that's the only way you get your dopamine hit, you can literally drive yourself into an autoimmune from over exercising. Poor sleep. This is one of the big kahunas. If we don't wake up and get enough sleep and we're in a tired state, that will drive inflammation. That will drive autoimmune problems. So I just heard from a sleep scientist. I was watching this, and this was cool. I like this. He said, it doesn't matter how much sleep you get. It depends on when you go to bed and when you wake up. So you fall asleep, and whenever you're going to fall asleep, the time that you need to wake up is the time you need to wake up. So what messes you up the most is waking up at a different time. So if you always have to wake up at 6:30, try to wake up at 6:30 on the weekend too. And it will help you be able to sleep. Now, what happens is as soon as you wake up, within 2 hours, you get the light exposure, your melatonin levels will start dropping and then spiking 14 hours after you wake up. And that's going to make you go to sleep 14 hours after you wake up. That's the general gist of what's happening. So basically what I'm telling you is if you want to get your sleep under control, the easiest way to fix it is always wake up at the same time every day. And that's going to help you start going into a cycle. Now, if we have underlying gut issues, there's things we can help you with, but that's the bigger one that I want you to look at is just, are we in a rhythm where we wake up at the same time every day? And then emotional overload. This one, I want you to understand, will cause as much, if not worse, than a bacterial viral infection is chronic emotional stress. You will have huge cortisol spikes. You will have your immune system spike and then fatigue. So just think about what happens at the end of the quarter. How do we do at the end of the quarter if we have to get a lot of stuff done? A lot of people get sick. End of finals, a lot of people get sick. If you have a nice roll out big fight with your spouse and you're stressed out for a couple days, then you get sick right after. And that's because you're literally spiking your immune system and keeping it on the whole time. High, 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 high the whole time. Now, if you want to know if you're stressed out and if you're going towards this, these are things that we test. One of the things that we test is how warm and how cold are your hands. Just like I said, if you want to see if your friend or family member or daughter or whatever, this is how I see if my daughter is watching something that stresses her out. I literally touch her hand. And if she's watching Rescue Bots and her hand is cold and clammy, I know it's stressing her out. And if she's watching Frozen and it's not cold and clammy, I know it's okay. And it's literally that simple. Touching the hand, and if it's clammy, sweaty, and cold, tells me you're stressed out. So you can look at and see, am I emotionally stressed out? Your hands literally tell you. If you're fighting a fever or a cold, the same reaction happens as if you're emotionally stressed out. Your body has one response. You have a question? Okay. So what we want to understand is the same response happens. So if you are emotionally stressed out about somebody talking to you, hands will get cold. If you're stressed out because you have a fever, hands get cold. If you're stressed out because you're exposed to a toxin, hands get cold. You see what I'm showing you? The fight or flight response doesn't negate or doesn't indicate what it's from. It has one response. It turns on and then it's supposed to turn off. And then the last one that can be driving things like this is leaky gut. So if you have a leaky gut, and I threw this one in because a lot of people do, the food you eat can literally trigger an immune response. That's scary because if you have holes in your gut, the proteins that are coming through, your body will start attacking them because they'll say they're foreign. So what we want to look at is what is controlling the immune system, and ultimately, do you have any idea what controls the immune system? I hope somebody says this, or I feel like I've done an injustice to all of you. Nervous system, your brain, yeah, exactly. That controls your immune system. So if your immune system is working correctly, it means your brain is working correctly. If your immune system isn't working correctly, it means your brain isn't working correctly. Now, the takeaway I want you to have from every talk that I ever do is that you have to take better control of your brain's health for the rest of your life. That's my ultimate goal for everybody. Brain health. Your brain health dictates your health. Your brain health dictates your immune system, dictates how you think, dictates everything. We need to actually exercise it, and that's what we do in this office. Your brain health dictates how quickly you heal. Your brain health dictates if your anxiety and depression goes away or OCD goes away, all these different things. So what are things that will cause us to stay in fight or flight? They are things like chronic inflammation. So that means if you eat a food, say you're somebody who has Hashimoto's. Hashimoto's is an autoimmune of your thyroid. There's a cross-reactivity with the thyroid reactions and gluten and dairy. And there's a high cross-reactivity with gluten and dairy and your cerebellum, or the part of the brain that controls how you move. So you literally could be inducing an autoimmune disease by chronically flaying yourself because you're eating dairy and gluten. That's crazy, right? Because the inflammation turns on, but you need to understand the inflammation is a signal. The signal is telling your immune system to stay on, to stay in fight or flight. Inflammation tells you to stay in fight or flight. So it's a feedback loop. Your body's saying, oh, I'm inflamed, stay in fight or flight. What else can trigger that? Emotional surges like I talked about. But what else can trigger your immune system to go up too high? Blood sugar imbalances. Your blood sugar goes up or down too high, fight or flight. So what is something we chronically hear from usually females, can be males? I wake up 3 to 6 hours, usually 4 to 6 hours after I fall asleep, and can't fall back asleep. And it's literally because you've spiked your adrenaline because your body's trying to stop you from dying because your blood sugar is dropping too low. Make sense? So when we look at that, blood sugar is another one that can drive inflammation and then tells your body to stay in fight or flight. The staying in fight or flight is what turns on the autoimmune. And it's not just one of these, it's literally multiple of them. It's an example, living in a home that has mold, being stressed out because you can't pay for, say, your kids' schooling, your car breaks down, you're having a spat with your spouse, and then you get the flu, and then you get an autoimmune disease. It's not one thing. It's literally one after another, after another, after another, after another. And then one of the key things that I've seen chronically show up in people with autoimmune is that they have low glutathione. Glutathione is an antioxidant, so it means it gets rid of free radicals made in your liver that heals every single cell in your body, removes toxins, and is basically the longevity hormone. It makes you stay young. So if you don't have enough glutathione, that's what we chronically see in people with autoimmune. Because it's like our get out of jail free card. If we're really stressed out, our body will pull on glutathione to remove whatever the problem is. Too much inflammation, glutathione to the rescue. Too much toxins, glutathione to the rescue. Damage to cell, glutathione's coming in. But if you suck it all out because you're chronically stressed out, living in toxic areas, it'll go away. So you can see it's not that there's one thing. You can't be like, well, I was exposed to mercury, now I have an autoimmune. It could have been that, or it could have been the cold, or it could have been living in a mold house, or it could have been emotional stress. You name it. It could be multiple things. Are you getting how it's not just one thing? It's literally a landslide of things. But when you start recognizing it, then you can understand why we're getting stuck, why we're having issues, why these things are turning on. Lack of sleep will also drive it up. So what are common traits of people that get autoimmune? They ignore fatigue. I'm just going to push through this. I'm going to work harder. They care or take more of their energy to take care of others than they do of themselves. So these are people who put everybody else in front of them, drive really hard, and literally don't give themselves time to rest. These are chronic emotional types, archetypes of what I see with people that get autoimmune. Basically comes down to they don't rest. So we'll hear things from people with autoimmune. We'll hear things like, I don't feel safe when I slow down. I always have to be busy. They're just running, going, always things having to happen. They can't just stop. You also hear things like, I have to earn rest. You have to work for it. Or you hear things like, my body is failing me. All of these things are statements that you need to hear. If you hear them from people, understand they're going to that autoimmune state. So what are common things that we'll see with somebody with an autoimmune? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the symptoms of somebody that would have autoimmune. So the one we're going to explain is Hashimoto's. So Hashimoto's is an autoimmune of the thyroid. What that means is your immune system has made antibodies. So think of an antibody like a Lego block that sticks onto a protein and tells the body if it's foreign, bad, or if it's you, good. Now in autoimmune, that Lego block touches the thyroid and it says thyroid bad. But remember, there's cross-reactivity that happens here. So for this person to get to the point where their immune system does this, they're exercising, literally. I'm going to talk about one person I know very specifically, so one patient. I'm not going to use the name, but they were exercising 3 to 4 hours a day, every day. That's how they're doing with stress. They were taking care of multiple children at the same time, 5 and 2 dogs. They also were in a not stable relationship, and then they got a flu. And it literally, and as well as they were eating a lot of sugar. So what are the things that triggered there was, well, I can't say it was one of them, it was multiple, as we can see. And so what happened with this person is they were always tired, but couldn't sleep. So what does that sound like? That's everything I'm going to talk about here is the fight or flight response being stuck on. So they're always tired, but they can't sleep. One of the foods that you can actually get triggered with autoimmune, I talked about earlier, is things like gluten and dairy. So people who have autoimmune, if they eat certain foods, it can actually trigger their immune system to get stronger and flare it. So what I need you to understand is if you have an autoimmune, because the immune system responds based on all or nothing, good or bad. So if you have autoimmune and you get a cold, it will flare your autoimmune and you'll attack your joints more. So if you have arthritis, your hands will hurt more. If you have autoimmune and you get in a fight with your spouse or significant other, if it's arthritis, it'll flare your joints more. If you have autoimmune and you eat the wrong food, it can flare your joints more. You see what I'm saying? It's literally everything. Anything that triggers fight or flight will cause the autoimmune to turn on and get worse. So that's why if you are in that place with autoimmune, the goal is to literally balance your immune system and balance your nerve system. Get it so it reacts the least amount of times as you can. If you can do that, you're going to stop the flares. That's the big key. So triggered by food. This person was continually anxious about everything, scared. Because when you don't sleep, you become irrational. When you don't sleep, your cortisol keeps spiking, which drives inflammation, which then will affect your brain, will affect your thyroid. For this person, thyroid controls your metabolism and your energy. So the thyroid literally determines how quickly your energy and how fast it works throughout the day. So if you have an autoimmune thyroid problem, you're going to have energy that's really high or really low. And you're going to be really, really tired, but can't fall asleep, or you're going to be really manic and burn yourself out. And it's because whenever the body attacks the thyroid, it actually tells it to burn more energy because the thyroid will spike. The energy will actually spike throughout the body. Does this make sense? So if you're like, well, the person seems bipolar, but their neurotransmitters, everything's okay, they could have a thyroid problem that's triggered because they're eating too much gluten or dairy. Isn't that crazy? They're also going to be, she was suffering from brain fog. Well, she's not sleeping enough. Her hormones are off. Brain fog can happen from thyroid being off. And she chronically had the shakes. Now, that can be a neurodegenerative issue like Parkinson's, but in her case, it was literally the body being in fight or flight. It was chronically ready to jump. So you can see all of this. This poor lady couldn't sleep, was always tired, literally couldn't eat the foods that she wanted. And what we needed to do is figure out what was triggering her. With this poor lady, the foods that she loved to eat was literally what was triggering her. Potatoes literally triggered her autoimmune. Wheat, corn. Try to eat somewhere if you're going out for dinner that doesn't have potatoes, wheat, or corn. It's pretty hard. And so you can understand why if she's eating out, it's going to trigger everything. The other thing that you want to be aware of, anything that causes inflammation is going to trigger the autoimmune. That's the big key takeaway I want you to have. So if you drink alcohol, it'll trigger your autoimmune because your blood sugar is going to go up and down. If you smoke marijuana, it will trigger your blood sugar to go up and down, which will turn on your autoimmune. Making sense? So we want to get these things under control. If we don't have autoimmune, you want to stabilize before they get worse. So my ask of you is if you know anybody with autoimmune, don't let them run into what this poor lady had. Literally suffering and not knowing what to do for 6 years. Literally telling me when we did the report, if this wasn't going to work, I was done. You know how many times I've heard that? Like done, like I'm taking myself. It's over. I've heard that many times. And so if you have a friend or family member who is stuck in that place, let them know we have a patient appreciation week coming up. That week is March 30, 31, April 1 and 2. And at that time, you can get the examination for $20. You're literally giving them the exam, and I'm going to give it away. I'm going to lose money on it because I want you to help your friends and family members. I want them to not be stuck. I want them to be free and be able to make choices and understand that it's not bad genes. They're not a bad person, that there is an answer. You just have to look deeper. So my hope and my prayer is you can think of one of those people and change their lives by letting them know about that, okay? Thank you guys. Have a good night.